Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is the final part of our lecture on risk and return. So in the first part, we look at risk and return of single investment, then portfolio investment, efficient frontier, CAPM, security market line. In this part, we are going to look at the concept of alpha and arbitrage pricing theory. Now, if you have not watched any of these parts, except this conclusive part, you can visit our YouTube channel on Data Analytica, and you can watch all the parts and other of our videos on the YouTube channel. You can consider subscribing to the video as well as hit the notification bell so that when we drop any content, you will get it. You can also help us refer people that are studying finance or want to know about finance to our YouTube channel. So also we do videos on research methodology and also data analysis. Part 6 is on alpha and arbitrage pricing model. Now, the concept of alpha. Alpha is an investment strategy's ability to beat the market or its edge. So, the ability of the portfolio manager to perform and beat the market portfolio, the index, is what we refer to as alpha. Now, it is also called excess return or abnormal rate of return. The alpha generally is excess return of an investment relative to the return of the benchmark index. So when a portfolio or a mutual fund is tracking an index and that mutual fund outperform, the return is more than that of the benchmark index or is less than. That is what we refer to as alpha. Alpha can also be negative, as we'll see later. So it represents the value that a portfolio manager adds or subtract from a fund's return. The alpha value may be positive or negative and is a result of active investing. If alpha value is equals to 0, it indicates that the portfolio or fund is tracking perfectly the benchmark index. So let's say mutual fund, an equity mutual fund that is tracking S&P 500 and its return is equals to the return of S&P 500 index. So the alpha value will be equals to 0. It means it's tracking perfectly the benchmark index. If alpha value is greater than 0, that is positive, it means the portfolio outperformed its benchmark index. And if alpha value is negative, that is less than 0, it means it has underperformed relative to the benchmark index. And we should note that if a positive value of alpha means that a fund manager has beat the market with their stock picking skill. Sometimes it might not be their stock picking skill, it might be as a result of other factors in the economy that makes the alpha value to be positive. We should take note of that too. Also, we should note that you can only compare alpha value of two or more similar funds. And alpha value, if you are comparing to know whether one fund is performing, whether to compare the performance of two funds, we should know that we should compare funds that is tracking that are similar in characteristics, not comparing, let's say, an equity mutual fund with a bond mutual fund. So that will not give us a good view of those comparisons. How do we calculate alpha? So to calculate alpha, it's just the difference between the realized return and our cap M. This is our cap M, which we have stated earlier. So if you look at this equation here, you see clearly this is our cap M equation. So this is the realized return on the portfolio. So the explanation for this, if you look, this is the realized return of the portfolio. This is the realized return of the market index. This is the risk-free rate, and this is the beta of the portfolio. So let's take an example and see how we calculate alpha. Assume there is a mutual fund whose realized return is 15% last year. The market index for this fund returned 12%. So the beta of the fund versus that of the same index is 1.2 and the risk-free rate is 3%. So how do we get the beta, the alpha for this? So if we plug this into our formula, we can see clearly that our formula here. So we plug those values into the formula. The RP here is 15%, that is the realized return on the portfolio. Then the risk-free rate is 3%, and the beta 1.2. The market index return is 12%. We plugged in, we see that our alpha is 1.2. This is positive value. So this means that the mutual fund outperformed the market index by 1.2%. So let's look at arbitrage pricing theory. The arbitrage pricing theory was developed by Stephen Ross in 1976. It is a multi-factor asset pricing model. What we mean by that is that our cap M has only one factor, which is the market risk premium. So it is an alternative to cap M, which has only one factor model. The asset return using the arbitrage pricing theory are predicted by several macroeconomic variables. This theory is saying that it is not only the market, the market index that affect the stock return. There are other macroeconomic variables that, like GDP, that also affect the asset return. So the assumption is that the market sometimes misprice security. That is, the market is not efficient. That means an arbitrager can take advantage of this deviation to buy at a lower price and sell at a higher price. So how many factors that can be used in arbitrage pricing theory is subjective. So there is no objective factor, but the factors that are 4 or 5 factors are usually suggested that explain most of the security return. They include arbitrage pricing factor cannot be reduced by diversification. That is, the systematic risk cannot be reduced. So example of these factors are inflation. Inflation affects stock prices, the gross national product, corporate bond spread, and shift in the yield curve. Others are GDP, commodity prices, market indices, and exchange rate. So if we are stating this model, we'll take into consideration all these factors that affect the stock price, the return. So the model for arbitrage pricing theory is the expected return of the portfolio is equals to the risk-free rate. Then this is the beta 1 of the first factor, beta 2 of the second factor, like that. All the factor with their sensitivities. So the F1 to Fn are the different macroeconomic factors. the beta 1 to beta n are their sensitivities to changes. So each of these factors are sources of systematic risk. That is why we have their beta. Then the relationship between the expected return and factor sensitivities can be expressed as this. So if we look at this clearly, we'll see that our model for apt is showing beta and risk premium of the first factor, risk premium of the second factor multiplied by its beta, like that. So let's take example and see. We should note that these are risk premium for different factors. Let's take example and see. So from this our example, the following four factors have been indicated as explaining stock return and its sensitivity to each factor, and the risk premium associated with each factor have been calculated. So GDP, this is the beta, and this is the risk premium. Inflation, this is the beta, this is the risk premium. Gold, this is the beta, this is the risk premium, like that. So we are asked if the risk-free rate is this, what is the expected return? So if we plugged in to our arbitrage pricing theory model, we can see the risk-free rate is 3%. That is the 3% here, plus beta 1. Our beta 1 is for GDP 0.6. You can see here, we multiply it by the risk premium of beta 1, which is this, that is the 4%. For beta 2, is inflation 0.8. You can see it clearly here. We multiply it by the risk premium, which is 2%. For gold, minus 0.7, look at the value here. We multiply it by 5%, which is the risk premium for gold. S&P, that is the index of the market, the beta is 1.3. That is it, we multiply it by 9%, which is this. So if we multiply this and add it to risk-free rate, then our return using the arbitrage pricing model is equals to 15.2%. So this is how we apply the arbitrage pricing theory. So with this, that brings us to the end of our presentation on risk and return. You can thank you for listening. If you enjoy our content, kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. We drop lectures on corporate finance. We also do research methodology, different way that we can simplify research. And we also do data analysis. So visit our YouTube channel. You have a lot to learn from it. So thank you very much for listening.